A good introduction to the concepts of literacy is given in the 2006 Global Monitoring Report, which also refers to the substantial research by international scholars from several disciplines, including anthropologists as well as educationists. There is some suspicion that while studies on literacy have shifted to new viewpoints, they are not yet widely understood by national and international policymakers or aid donors. New scholarship has emphasized that so-called illiterates or non-literates often have command of literacy skills useful to them, and has also tackled the problem of why, if literacy is empowering, as we claim, people, women especially, drop out of literacy classes. The scholars highlight the issue of what kinds of literacy adult learners want and the need for them to have a chance to share in curriculum making. Literacy has to relate to learners' own contexts, own concerns, and own goals. Part of the process of empowerment of literacy learners is in their taking control over their learning. That is why, if I may say so, young foreigners or older foreigners for that matter, dropping in on an aeroplane for a few weeks doesn't really contribute very much to empowerment, if I may be slightly undiplomatic. We've already acknowledged some percepts on literacy from UNESCO itself. To recapitulate, UNESCO has helped to construct the picture of literacy as a part of lifelong learning, a necessary concomitant of school education in any society where adults have missed out, and a continuum, not a finite achievement. In particular, we've learnt that literacy is best seen as a social skill connected to development and change. That message has been reinforced in recent years by the UNDP's Human Development Report, which posits literacy as one of the three essentials for the well-being of a society, the other two being health and the chance to earn a sufficient livelihood. A practical example of relating these three elements together is provided for us today by another of today's prize winners, the SERVE program in Afghanistan, which focuses on literacy, livelihood, health, and nutrition. One of the contestants, too, which had honorable mention, the Bhutan Ministry of Education, includes literacy as part of gross national happiness. Successive human development reports have consistently implied that societies where more of the population share these essentials are more successful than those where there are significant differences in access to knowledge, health, and income. There is now a growing tide of thought which affirms this. In the words of a recent book, more equal societies almost always do better. More equal societies almost always do better. Or from our perspective, the more members of a population that are fully involved in society through the empowerment given by access to literacy, the more healthy and successful that society will be. This is a strong rationale for investing in literacy. Because it empowers more citizens and leads to greater social symmetry, it is likely to lead to greater general well-being and greater national achievement. In addition to all this, let us look at one or two other viewpoints on literacy. First, here is a quotation from the Nigerian poet Niyi Oshundare. In the tempered peace which rustles the dew of nodding forests, in the silence which foregoes the gallop of fertile thunders, let me see your voice. Let me see your voice, so lithe, so light, like eggs of star sparrows. I will not let fall the eggs. I will not let the eggs fall. The poet is telling us that seeing voices on a written or printed page may have something magical about it, that it's a precious acquisition to be held on to as carefully as the most delicate of eggs. The determination not to let the eggs fall underlines the importance of maintaining literacy. Elementary reading and writing skills are of little use for any purpose, let alone leading to empowerment, if they're not used and developed. This is why there's been so much concern about what constitutes a literate environment. Literacy programs are often planned without any support after they're completed, partly because planners may not yet have fully come to terms with the concept of literacy as a continuing process. In very many cases, there are virtually no libraries within traveling distance of the literacy learners, let alone internet access points, and few reading materials in their immediate surroundings. This is why we should congratulate another prize winner today, Niranta, from Uttar Pradesh in India, which has made news waves, as we heard, by producing a rural newspaper. It is sustaining in that it provides a continuous flow of interesting and relevant reading material, and it is empowering as it is written by the low-caste women for themselves. We tend to think of empowerment in social and economic terms, but Oshundari reminds us that literacy can be a part of creativity, of the kind of imagination which energizes visions of change in communities. For instance, there are mobilizing and non-formal education organizations in some South American countries which give a strong emphasis to traditional culture in their programs, using images, music, and traditional songs. And I've observed in programs among internally displaced people in the Sudan that learners were particularly happy in literacy programs which used cultural subject matter. We're inevitably concerned with the more analytic or the more mundane, but we should think of literacy as not only under the E for education in UNESCO, but also under the C for culture. Here, let me briefly digress to remind ourselves of another aspect of seeing voices. We look at symbols on a page or a computer screen, and some symbols are of words and some of numbers. Numeracy is generally taken as accompanying literacy, but it's differentiated in several ways. In the first place, at an elementary level, a single digit represents a whole word, whereas in most present-day scripts, a word is usually voiced from several characters together. This seems to make the initial reading of numbers easier. In the second place, we're all aware of how skilled in numbers many non-literate people are. I knew a Ghanaian woman who ran a very successful taxi fleet without being able to read. She kept all the figures in her head and could add and subtract at awe-inspiring speed. Such ability helps in taking in written numbers. In the third place, the arrival of mobile phones has transformed many communities in developing countries. Recognizing the figures on the handset is a very easily acquired skill, and the users very soon find practical benefits which are strongly motivating. One benefit is being able to phone a contact in the market in town to learn selling prices, so that the farmer is in a better bargaining position with the middleman, an example of numeracy leading to economic empowerment. To return to literacy per se, here is the description of a Senegalese woman from the pro-FEMU literacy classes of the 1990s. She says, "It helps you to open your mind, it helps you to obtain other skills, and it helps you to recognize everything around. Her comment is not a definition, but it characterized literacy very helpfully as potentially enabling. It's an instrument for shaping ideas, learning new things, and understanding a person's or group's situation. The Nigerian poet and the Senegalese learner open other windows on literacy's association with empowerment, and we'll now move to suggest briefly what empowerment is about. And I'm taking my definition from that well-known organization BRAC, the Bangladesh Rural Advancement Committee. It sees empowerment as enfolding a sense of security and a vision of a future, a sense of security and a vision of a future. I think that's very poignant when we hear some of the people who have won prizes today. Increased share in household decision-making, the ability to earn a living, participation in non-family groups, mobility and visibility in the community, and the ability to act effectively in the public sphere. Empowerment, like literacy, thus has many contexts, is a process rather than a state, and also has both individual and collective dimensions.